When you hear names like JRR Tolkien, Douglas Adams, and Michael Moorcock, obviously there are some series and books that jump to mind immediately, but all these authors were very, very prolific, and they've written some things that may have gotten by you. Hey everybody, welcome to D3 Reads. I'm Eric, and today I'm hoping to introduce you to some lesser known books written by some of the masters of fantasy and science fiction. When you hear names like JRR Tolkien, Douglas Adams, and Michael Moorcock, obviously there are some series and books that jump to mind immediately, but all these authors were very, very prolific, and they've written some things that may have gotten by you. So we're going to talk about some of those lesser known works of these literary titans. Now, first of all, we're going to jump right into my absolute favorite. If you watched our videos at all, you know that I think that J.R.R. Tolkien is the ultimate fantasy writer. His epic fiction is the gold standard of fantasy works. And so even if you're a fantasy fan who it doesn't put Tolkien in quite as high as esteem as I do, you've probably read his works. Most folks will have read The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and then if you took that to the next level, you read the Silmarillion. I've read that twice, need to read it again. And then if you're something of a Tolkien scholar or a real super fan, you started reading all of the books of Lost Tales and the other works that are compiled by Tolkien's son Christopher in the years since his death. And I think they're on volume like 1,000 now or something like that. To be honest, I've only read like the first one or two of the books of Lost Tales. And after that, I kind of let life get in the way, and I haven't read those others. But he's written quite a few other books over the years, some scholarly, some fantasy, and he is always delivering amazing fiction. So we're going to talk about a couple of these. The first one is Rover Random. Now, the thing about this book that just blows me away is that it was published first in 1998, even though Tolkien wrote it in 1937. In 1937, he submitted it to his publisher. He had just published The Hobbit. He's world famous now. And his publisher read it, said, this is a very good book, but you know what we would like more? Hobbits. So this book got set aside, and Tolkien started working on the sequels to The Hobbit, of course, The Lord of the Rings. This book is sat on the back burner for decades after Tolkien passed away, until it was finally pulled out, I imagine by Christopher Tolkien, and finally published in '98. Now, this book is really, it's a good book. It's kind of a fairy tale, and it invokes, I think, the spirit of The Hobbit. It's fun and clearly designed for kids. The story behind it is that Tolkien and his family were out on holiday celebrating a promotion he got. He was just brought on, I think, as a tenured professor. And while they were out on the beach, his youngest son, I don't think it's Christopher, his next youngest son, lost this toy dog that he had, and this crushed this child because it was one of his favorite toys. So Tolkien, over the subsequent period of days and weeks and months and then years, put together this story called Rover Random. And it's about a dog who runs afoul of a wizard. Now, this all takes place in England. And he runs afoul of a wizard, and the wizard turns him into a toy. And this toy can come alive at night so long as there's nobody else around. And so this dog is trying to figure out, so he's this tiny little toy. He's got to try to find out how to not be a toy anymore, and then to get back to his regular size again, because he obviously misses his owner, this little old lady. And he also doesn't want to be eaten by the family cat. And so so this triggers an adventure with this dog, and it's so much fun to read. I read this long ago. I barely remember any of it, so I started rereading it, and it's touching. I'm about halfway through the reread, and I tell you, it's touching, it's endearing, and it's just fun. There's glimpses, I think, of some of the work that's going to come out of Tolkien in the subsequent years. It reminds me of some of the fun and the innocence that you find in The Hobbit, the storytelling methodology, and just almost like the conversational nature of the story. The books also has some of the art that he does that I think if you've gotten some of the Hobbit special editions that include some of Tolkien's drawings, you can see his fingerprints on those as well. So definitely worth your time if you're a Tolkien fan and you want to get to something that brings you back to maybe your first love, most people's first love with Tolkien, which was The Hobbit. So check out Rover Random. Now, the second book is really cool too, because I've had this for years. It's called The Smith of Wootton Major, and it was published in 1967, so before Tolkien died. Now, this book, I found it in a used bookstore down in St. Augustine years ago. I think I read it and then just kind of put it in my bookshelf because, again, you can tell it's kind of old, and forgot about it until just recently. And I pulled it out and I reread it, and I really enjoyed it. I don't know much of the story behind the publication of it. He worked with this Pauline Baines for the illustrations. Who had worked on a previous book of his called Farmer Giles of Ham. That is a book I have not yet read, even though it's been on my to-read list for probably decades. But Smith of Wootton Major is kind of neat because I think this was published after The Lord of the Rings had come out, and in it you get this. It's a fantasy story. Let me give you a real quick synopsis. In this book, there is a small town called Wootton Major, and this town has a master cook in it, and this cook has a lot of responsibilities, and among them is to create this cake once every 24 years. In this festival, it's supposed to honor these good children. I think they said 24 children are invited every 24 years to sit down and have this piece of cake. This cake is supposed to be the kind of the culmination of this cook's whole career. This is the only thing you're going to be remembered by, is if this cake lived up to the expectations of this festival that happened every 24 years. Well, the master cook in the story brings back an apprentice after going out traveling to unknown parts. He brings back this apprentice who nobody knows. He's this guy named Alf, though most people call him Prentice. Things happen that bring where this cook decides to just up and leave one day, and he puts Alf in charge. However, Alf, being only a cook for 3 years and being apparently so young, the village selects another guy, more gruff, kind of a jerk, to be the head cook. Anyway, this cook, this gruff new master cook, finds in the storehouses of the old cook this silver star that he decides to put into this cake for the children. And one of the children accidentally eats it, and it winds up being this connection to the world of fairy. Now, I'm not going to go into what happens next, but this book is this amazingly distilled. They call it a novella, but really it's a short story. But this book is this amazing condensed story that I think is just filled with wonder and hints at Tolkien's ability to convey the importance of myth and fairy stories. So this is kind of a fairy tale for adults, whereas Rover Random, I said it was more in the style of The Hobbit. This is definitely more in the style of The Lord of the Rings, and a short, convenience to read story. I enjoyed this. I reread this again just the other night, and I was just sucked in. It is so well done, and the story is really engaging. And if you have not read Smith of Wootton Major and you're a Tolkien fan, you got to jump on it. And if you're not a Tolkien fan, or you don't know if you're a Tolkien fan, definitely check this out. It's short, it's easy to read, but it's condensed Tolkien, and definitely worth your time if you're a fantasy fan. Now, this last book by Tolkien is not really written by Tolkien. This is more of an academic work. It's a collection of 3 different stories: Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, Pearl, and Sir Orfeo. And what it is Tolkien, as a professor, he really delighted in medieval history and language. And so what he did is he set out to modernize or to translate this Middle English texts. They were located, I think, in the British Museum. And he basically brought this up into modern language, trying to keep the meter and cadence of these poems that deal with things like King Arthur and Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. So it's the first story. And the reason why I'm recommending this is I haven't read the whole thing. And matter of fact, when I first started reading it years and years ago, I kind of struggled with it a little bit. the story setup is really neat. With Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, you have King Arthur having this kind of big tournament, and everybody's having a good time until this massive green knight shows up. His armor is green, his skin is green, everything about him is green, and it kind of sets out this the series of events that involves the main characters. I struggled with it a little bit, but when you read it, you kind of get a sense of some of the formative ideas that helped shape JRR Tolkien's later works. He called Sir Gawain and the Green Knight a romance and a fairy tale for adults. And you can kind of sense how this would help subsequently shape his writing in his later books. And so it's really neat to see this side of Tolkien and his analysis. So if you're of that kind of mind, you want to kind of glean some insights into Tolkien's into how Tolkien thinks and his more academic side, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is definitely something you want to read. Moving on from J.R.R. Tolkien, I owe these next two books that we're going to cover to this fantastic used bookstore that just recently opened about 30 minutes from where I live. This is in Dayton, Ohio, and the store is called Dollar Book Swap. And Dollar Book Swap, the model behind it is fantastic. Every book in this shop, which is really like a massive warehouse where part of it's been turned into a bookstore, is full of used books, and they're organized generally by genre. Every month or two, I will go by and check out what they've got. But this bookstore sells everything for $1.25. Every book is $1.25. What this allows me to do is I can go and experiment with books and authors I might not have read in the first place because I didn't want to spend $15, $20 on a new book, right? So I go there periodically, and I found some pretty neat sounding books that I intend on reading. Sometimes you find some bestsellers, right? So I actually got the complete Game of Thrones series books for less than $10. But a lot of times you come across some gems. And one time I went there and I came across this book by Michael Moorcock, The Warhound and the World's Pain. And I had never heard of this book. I've talked at length about Elric and the Elric series before, and I'm a fan of Moorcock's style, so I thought, wow, this is fantastic. So I grabbed it, set it aside. I intended to read it at a future date, but I have so much stuff on my TBR that I wasn't sure when I was going to get to it. So about a week or two ago, I was in a meeting. I work from home normally. And I was in a meeting, and there was a discussion going on, had absolutely nothing to do with me. And I looked over and I saw this book sitting there at the edge of my desk, and I thought I'll just read the first couple paragraphs just to see what the lay of the land is. And I got sucked in. The book is fascinating. It's about a warrior, kind of a mercenary captain during the 30 Years War period. His name's Von Beck, and he is kind of just. He was raised on war, and he's kind of a cynic, and he's traveling away from one conflict and not sure where he's going next. The whole land is ravaged by conflict, and he finds himself in this mysterious castle that happens to be owned by none other than Lucifer. And so Lucifer says he wants to cut a deal with him, and so he brings him to hell to negotiate terms to find the Holy Grail. Now, if you are a person of faith, the Christian faith rather, don't look for doctrinal integrity with this book. There's nothing here that's going to, I think, increase or challenge your religious faith. But from a just pure fun perspective, this book is pretty interesting. I'm not finished with it. I am about 30% through the book, but so far it's really, really engaging. Now, for you Moorcock superfans, you probably already know this, but I did not. Like I said, my primary exposure to Michael Moorcock was the whole Elric series. I knew Elric was a manifestation of something he calls the Eternal Champion. But what I didn't know was just how complex and huge Moorcock's Eternal Champion mythology was. He's written tons of books that deal with various manifestations of what he calls the Eternal Champion. In Moorcock's multiverse, you have this constant struggle between the forces of law and the forces of chaos. And when one side gets too powerful over the other, this Eternal Champion, I guess, is kind of pulled into the mix and manifested in a person like in the Elric series, it's Elric. And this champion doesn't necessarily even know that they are a manifestation of the eternal champion. They just get pulled into this kind of cosmic struggle to balance things, to kind of bring the balance back between law and chaos. Well, the Warhound, in this case, Von Beck, is one of the manifestations of this. And there's a sequel, I forget the title of it, that came out a few years after this. This was published in 1981. I think the sequel came out in 87, 86. But I didn't realize that this was part of this champion, this eternal champion mythos. So I did a little bit of reading up on it. And this is where I found out, wow, this is really layered and a whole lot of books out there with this. So if you've read these books, if you're more familiar with this, drop a comment. Please let me know what you thought of the Warhound in the World's Pain, the Von Beck books, or if you would suggest any of the other Eternal Champion stories. I'd love to hear from you. And finally is an author that I can't believe I haven't talked about more at length, because he is a favorite of mine. And I'm talking about Douglas Adams. Now, I have been saving his works. I'm going to be doing a video here in the next couple of months dealing with some of the best humor books. And his seminal works, of course, are the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy trilogy, which got up to 5 books. Well, again, while I was at that used bookstore, the Dollar Book Swap, I came across The Salmon of Doubt. And I don't know if I had just completely forgotten about it or if somehow it snuck under my radar, but I was super excited when I saw this. So I bought it and read the introduction to it. And so I'm looking forward to reading it. But here's the story behind it. It's pretty fascinating. So Douglas Adams died tragically young, 49, in early part of 2001. Well, within a few months, one of his editors, a guy by the name of Peter, I forget his last name, was contacted by Douglas Adams' agent, who said that a friend of Douglas's had a CD. He had basically gone through all of Douglas Adams' computers and compiled a lot of his documents and burned it to CD, and asked Peter if he wanted to take a look at it and see if there's anything in there that might, deserve some attention from Douglas Adams fans. So he looked at it, and he was just blown away by the amount of stuff that was in there. And so that eventually culminated in The Salmon of Doubt, which was published pretty quickly, actually. I think it came out a year after the death of Douglas Adams. And what this book contains is a series of essays and letters written by Douglas Adams over the years, but it also contains the most complete version of this book, The Salmon of Doubt. And the history behind it is pretty cool, because apparently Adams intended this story to be the third in the Dirk Gently detective agency series. But as he wrote it, he admitted in an interview, again prior to his death, that it was panning out to be a much more natural fit in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy universe than it was in the Dirk Gently universe. And so he made it, I guess, clear that he intended to kind of retool the story so it fit more cleanly into the Hitchhiker's universe. Another reason why he wanted to do that, though, is because the 5th book in the series, Mostly Harmless, he wasn't happy with it. And apparently a lot of folks weren't happy with it. And he felt like he owed it to his fans, I guess, to create a 6th book in his Hitchhiker's trilogy. So that's what you get with The Salmon of Doubt. A bunch of insights into Douglas Adams' works, and then the most complete version of The Salmon of Doubt that has been written. So I'm looking forward to that. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a video here in a couple of months on best humor books, and Douglas Adams, of course, deserves to be there, along with Terry Pratchett, his friend. But if you've read this, let me know what you think, and I will be releasing my review of it here in the not too distant future. But that's it, guys. I hope that you learned of a book that you weren't aware of before. If you've read any of these lesser-known works, please let me know what you thought about them. If you've got any other suggestions by any of these authors or any of the other titans of the industry, let me know. I'd love to add them to my ever-growing TBR list. So thanks, guys, for your time. Have a great day and enjoy the book.